just when he thought it was safe to be a pig. Walking through the grass, eating the mud. Who could want more, right? Like, they don't need mud, Jason. I don't know. Some of them might. But in China, right now, they're running a test on a series of pigs that may end up saving numerous human lives. But at what cost? And then we take a look at the story of a young woman who dreams of the future. Not metaphorically, literally. When she falls asleep, she can see things that are about to happen in her mind. But what happens when these dreams become a dark and terrifying reality? And she did nothing to stop it. Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. I hope you guys are having a great day too. I hope you guys had an awesome weekend. I hope you guys gobbled up a bunch of turkey if you were celebrating Thanksgiving. Thanks to everyone who came out to the Dead Rabbit Radio Thanksgiving live stream special. Lots of fun having you there. I uploaded that as a podcast episode, so if you weren't able to make it, you could listen to it. I will tell you, the first 5 minutes are just me saying hello, people's name. Hello, people's name. So yeah, it doesn't start. It's not the most exciting start, but as the episode goes on, I think it's entertaining. I think you guys have fun if you weren't there. But someone who was there and someone who made a generous donation to the Thanksgiving live stream running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command right now. Everyone get on your feet and give it up for Blitz Neo. Woohoo, yeah, wee, haha, yeah, he's coming down in with a bunch of leftovers, that stovetop stuff, and yummy, 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 I'm gonna eat it up. Blitz Neo, you're gonna be our captain or pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially through live streams or the merch store or through Patreon or anything like that, that's fine. It really, really is. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Blitz Neo, let's go ahead and get this party started. I'm going to toss you the keys to the... Let's go classic. I'm going to toss you the keys to the Jason Jalopy. Everyone climb on board this rickety old chitty chitty bang bang car as we leave behind Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Blitz, drive us all the way out to China. Nice leisurely drive all the way out to China. We've been to China quite a few times on this podcast, honestly. We've covered some crazy UFO stories there. I remember the one, I'll put it in the show notes because every so often I think of it and chuckle, about that guy who swore that aliens were abducting him, but not like in a spaceship. These two aliens kept showing up at his house and they'd say, "Jump on our back, bro, jump on our back. We're going to fly around China." So he was riding this dude. He was like, straddling this guy. These two guys are flying around like Superman. And you go, Jason, the man was obviously mentally ill. The problem is he would appear in these cities hundreds, if not 1,000 miles away, and no one could account to how he got there. He was just like a laborer who didn't have a ton of money. It's a hilarious story. His wife ends up leaving him. I think it was his fiance, because he won't stop talking about flying around on aliens. Hilarious story. We've been to China a couple times. This time, I don't know, is this sad? But we're landing in China. It's a terrible way. You're like, oh, if Jason thinks it's sad, this is going to be a rough one. Because Jason doesn't think anything's terrible. He just laughed about a man's relationship falling apart because of aliens. Blitz Neo's driving us all the way over to China, and we're headed specifically to Sun Yat-sen University in China. We're walking around. There's a bunch of people wearing like the lab coats and the little diploma hats and stuff like that. They're graduating, and then they're like, "I got more learning to do, professor. So I'm not going to take off my graduation cap, and I'm going to put my lab coat back on." It's back to the science lab, and that's where we're headed. We're headed to the science lab. And we get in there, and we see a bunch of scientists standing around this weird machine. And we hear a boom, 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 boom. And we're getting closer to this machine. We can't really see what it is. The scientists are standing. We can just see that it's a machine. We don't know what it is. It could be a carburetor. Could be a microwave oven. But neither of those sound like the beating heart that we're hearing. Dun, 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 dun. We're walking, and I go, dude, look at that. This is a bad sign. Look at all of those empty cages. All those empty animal cages were being attacked by rage monkeys. It's a promo read for 28 years later. We're walking in, and we see all these empty cages, and on each cage, it says, Tibetan Mini Pig #1. It's not there anymore. And then the next cage says, Tibetan Mini Pig 2. It's empty. And there's 17 of these empty cages. We're like, oh no, we missed the mini pig. Mini pigs sound fantastic. They're tiny little guys. Where are all the mini pigs at? Well, we're getting closer to this machine. Don't. And we get there, and now we're like pushing the scientists out of the way. They're like, get out of it. Get out of here, nerds. We're taking over. And what we see is there is a machine that has an artificial heart. Boom, bloom. Boom, bloom. That's the sound of the blood like shooting through the tubing. This artificial heart is pushing real pig blood through all of these tubes. And we're like, okay, is this some Halloween decoration? You're spraying the kids. You're like, trick or treat, you said. I'll give you a trick. Real pig blood right in the eye. But anyways, we see this machine. It's real pig blood, but a fake heart. But all of this blood is being fed up into a real pig's liver and a real pig brain. So you have this system built. Artificial heart, real blood, and then these real organs as well. And we notice this machine is actually hooked up to a computer display. And we're watching it, and it's just showing, nothing. Like, hitting the side of it, come on, show something. While trying to turn it on. Is Nickelodeon? You guys get Nickelodeon in here? We're watching this monitor, we're seeing this artificial heart pump this blood, and then all of a sudden, we start to notice... According to this computer, this pig's brain has come back to life. Reacting to and reading electrical signals through this pig's brain. This is a totally weird story. Has a lot of creepy implications. I found this article written by Millie Turner. She's the senior technology and science reporter for The Sun, the US edition. And she covers this story, and basically, on the one hand, you'll understand why this is important work, but the implications going forward is terrifying, but also what's happening right now is pretty creepy as well. When someone has a heart attack, I didn't know this. I learned some stuff. I learned there was a thing called a mini pig reading this article. When someone has a heart attack, what generally kills them is not the heart itself, it's the brain damage. They said when your heart stops pumping, your brain isn't getting any blood or oxygen or nutrients. That's what actually kills you when you have a heart attack. You don't technically die of the heart attack. I guess I didn't know that. I just thought you went, and then, he fell to the ground and died. And someone goes, how did he die? And the doctor's like, heart attack. He died of a heart attack. So I thought that that's what killed you. But they say, no, that's actually not what kills you. It's the cause of death. It definitely isn't good for you, and it will technically be your cause of death. Same thing as if you were in a car accident and you hit a wall and your brain, you're going so fast that your brain pushes through your skull and it collides with the wall. Technically, your brain leaving your body is what killed you, but we just say it was a car accident because we don't want to be disgusting. We don't want to be like, oh, well, technically he died when all of his organs exploded when he slammed into that wall. So it makes sense. It's the brain damage. So the doctors go, okay, so what can we do to prevent brain damage? That's why it's so important to start CPR. as soon as possible, because what you're doing, those chest compressions, you're pushing the blood through the body as best as you can. Right? You're pushing that blood through the body. It's getting to the brain. It's getting to the other organs, but specifically the brain. They say you're supposed to do it to the beat of staying alive, staying alive. Staying alive. If you're giving someone CPR, probably don't sing this song. Right? They're like, oh, he's having a good time over there. I'm not going to call the ambulance. I guess they're just having a dance party, and one of them is foaming at the mouth. He's having so much fun. So doctors have thought, how can we prevent the brain damage part of it? What's interesting is the scientists in Sun Yat-sen University realized through all of these tests that they've done, this is super weird, but this is the miracle of the human body. They say if you have a pig have a heart attack, or I don't know, how do they give the pigs heart attacks? Did the pigs have heart attacks or did they just kill them? I don't know. But anyways, they go, if the pig has a heart attack, it sounds terrible, but it's kind of funny. It's a little funny. Just imagine watching them a really spooky movie. They're like, little pig has a heart attack, or they stop its heart. Probably. They probably don't like go boo and scare it. It's I'm a mini pig. It doesn't think much. They probably just stop its heart because it's the same thing. If they stop the heart, within, minutes, the brain starts to die off because it's not getting the nutrients it needs. It's not getting the blood that it needs. But when someone has a heart attack, when somebody's heart stops pumping blood for whatever reason, if that damage does not reach the liver, the chances of you suffering brain damage go down. They've run multiple tests on this, and they go, if the liver is not damaged from this lack of blood flow, if it's a healthy liver and it's just not, obviously it's getting no blood at this point, but for whatever reason, if they're able to isolate it, or it gets less damage and preferably no damage at all, then the brain dies off at a slower rate. So you have more time to get help. And if you are resuscitated, you're not going to have such lasting or permanent brain damage. Or maybe it's permanent, but it's not so bad. And the way that they've tested this out, this is where it gets great. That's all very fascinating, because that's something that doctors can start looking for and trying to figure out a way, and emergency personnel try to figure out a way to, maybe like when you're doing CPR, maybe you gotta punch them in the liver a couple times. Like get it loose, get it tender, get some blood jiggling around in there. Doctors can look at this, but the way that they figured this out, this is the creepy part. Medical science is always fascinating. This will go a long way to helping people survive heart attacks. The way they figured this out, though, is that they would take a pig brain from a euthanized pig. They'd hook it up to this machine that has an artificial heart, and it's pumping artificial blood into the brain. Then, if they added a liver, from a dead pig to this machine, hooked it up. So it would be like the liver would be connected to a heart and to a brain, that same system. This is what's creepy about this, the way that they tested this, right? They hooked the liver up, they hooked the artificial heart up. Liver's real, brain's real, blood is real. They hooked this artificial heart up to it. They can reactivate the dead pig's brain. And it's not like just a spark. It's not like it just is this dim little light turning on. The pig's brain can be reactivated for up to 6 hours after death. This wasn't a pig who was formerly alive, had a heart attack, and they're trying to bring it back to life. This is a dead pig brain. This pig has been dead already. And they're reactivating it. If they don't have the liver, they can reactivate it for a very, very short amount of time. 20, 30 minutes. But if it's hooked up to an undamaged pig liver, they run this system, it can work for up to 6 hours. Now, we don't we know how brains work in a sense, but we do not understand how consciousness works. Some people say it's a soul in a human body. Some people say it's almost like a transmitter, like our brain is some sort of radio transmitter and we pick up the signal of us. Some people say consciousness has nothing to do with any sort of metaphysical thing. It's a series of chemicals and experiences and all that stuff that's unique to just you, and when you die, it's all gone. And there's hundreds of other different theories about it. But imagine if you died. This is not a near-death experience. This is not where people are actively trying to save your life. And you have a experience where you go to the other side and they go, oh, now's not your time. Now's not your time. Go back into your body, and then you're back in your body, and it's a miracle that you survived it all. It's a near-death experience. Even when they go, he was flatlined for 10 minutes. We thought he had frozen to death, and here he goes. He's back to life. It's a miracle. This was a pig that was dead. Was dead for a period of time. And they reactivated its brain. On any level of how you think of consciousness, I mean, obviously, like, imagine that if this pig had a soul and it left when it died. When the brain is reactivated, would that same soul come back? And now you're just a senseless organ. You have no eyes, you have no mouth. You must oink. But you can't. You're just this brain, and you went from having a little pig body and little pig eyeballs, and then they injected you with something and you died, and now you're in pig heaven. There's corn cobs as far as the eye can see. And now you're back on Earth, but you're just like in this void for 6 hours. Or would another soul inhabit the brain? Would possibly like a baby pig soul. It's like, I'm so excited to be born. I've heard great things about Earth. Whee! And the pig soul jumps out of pig heaven or the pig tree of life and into this brain, thinking he's going to be like a tiny pig fetus in mama. Right? He's like, oh, I can't wait to wrestle with my brothers and sisters. You're like, Jason, now you're making it. Depressing on purpose. Oh, I can't wait to wallow in the mud and have the sun shine on my belly. But instead, this new soul gets in this pig brain. And he's like, what? This isn't what? Oh, no. Ah! He's doing that for like 6 hours. But let's say you don't believe in that, or you don't even believe animals have souls. Let's say you don't believe in the existence of souls at all. That it is just a series of chemicals and experiences, and there's nothing... consciousness as we define it is a very crude term. There's nothing external to the body. Let's say that's your belief. That's almost even more terrifying, because then your consciousness was completely shut off. You were done. You were a little pig with little pig eyes, and you watch this needle go into your neck. And you're just erased. There's nothing. There's no Elysium. There's no endless field of corn cobs. Nothing. And then you're back. Your brain got reactivated. Those chemicals in your brain got reactivated. If that's all that we are, then you would 100% come back and you would have experienced no peace or joy in the interim. You were a pig. You were nothing. And now you're back. And because you're nothing, if you believe that there is no soul, then there's not even, you couldn't even measure a time of 6 hours. Or you're just gone, you're done. You're obliterated, and then somebody turns you back on. It would be the equivalent of turning a computer on and off. But this time your computer has no monitor, no keyboards, no speakers. It's just a little, floppy drive. And you're stuck there. So terrifying, really. I mean, here's the thing, too. Whenever I read stuff like this, I go, if they're doing this on pigs, and I understand the medical reason why they're doing it on pigs, somebody, somewhere, either has already tried it or will try it now, they'll do this to a human. In some unsanctioned place where you don't have to worry about a bunch of bureaucrats and lawyers looking over your shoulder being like, why is that human's brain hooked up to an artificial heart? Where'd that liver come from? Huh? That's it. I'm suing you. I'm suing all of you. And then you turn to walk out. You're a lawyer. And you're like, oh, wait. Huh? What? Where'd my liver go? And then you're being strapped down to a table. And they're like, excellent. Another test subject. Somebody's done that, right? Maybe not that exact scenario. They're like, why is the lawyer walking into this blood-coated laboratory that's on a, like, offshore drilling platform or whatever? Somebody's tried doing it with a human. And if they haven't, they'll try doing it now. Just to see if they can. If you had the funds and the scientific knowledge and no scruples. What's interesting is that I don't remember who it was. I'll try to find it back. But I used to read a lot of true crime. I used to read a ton of true crime books and everything. I remember I came across a serial killer, and what his thing was, what his go-to method of execution was, he would strangle women until they were unconscious, and then he would resuscitate them and strangle them again until they were unconscious, and then he would resuscitate them and strangle them again. And he would do this over and over again until he pushed them so far he couldn't resuscitate them. So it wasn't that he would just kind of wait till they kind of went, ugh, and kind of like got a little blue in the face. No, he would push them towards as close as he could get to them dying, and then he'd resuscitate them. He'd do CPR, or he'd do mouth to mouth until they came back to life, until they came back to consciousness, and then he would strangle them again. And I remember when I read that story, I go, oh my God, that's like one of the most brutal serial killers that I've ever come across. In the years since I found out about that guy, multiple other serial killers have done that now. That's not just him. That is something that other serial killers have done. And I don't know if it's because they heard about that guy or if they just developed it on their own. But we already have people out there who do that in a way. They push people as close as they can to the brink of death and then resuscitate them and then do it over again and over again and over again. You could do it 5 or 6, 7 times before the person would finally die. And that is so uniquely brutal. Where you do lose consciousness, you're drifting closer and closer to permanent death. And if he had done nothing, this is how much he didn't do it till they went to sleep. He would strangle them till the point where if he had not resuscitated, they would have died. They actually would have not recovered from that. And then once they wake up, he immediately starts doing it again. So he's pushing them as close as he can to, if he does nothing, they will die, and then brings back to life. So you do have this type of thing, and that would be their consciousness. You're in a state of complete terror. You're being strangled. Painful. It's the fear. It's every horrible emotion you could possibly have. You feel your body getting physically weaker and weaker and weaker, and then you become unconscious. And then as far as you know, you immediately wake up again. And he's strangling you once more. Like you would just be trapped in a terror loop. Over and over and over again until finally he couldn't resuscitate you. Until finally you died. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying story. We already have people kind of doing that thing, serial killer wise. You're like, Jason, wow, you took a story about weird life-saving science and you're like, how can I make this even more depressing? People are being strangled right now. I thought it was so creepy, and then I found out there was multiple serial killers who have done that since. I'll see if I can pull that stuff up. Crazy stuff, though. Consciousness and all that. What point does death become a simple inconvenience? Right, if you can just reactivate the brain 50 minutes after it's died, or an hour, 2 hours after the brain has been removed from a pig, then what? Is death just something that really the only people who die are people who are caught in traffic jams as the ambulance is trying to get you to the hospital, where if you have a heart attack, they're just going to hook you up to They'll hook you up to a couple mini pig livers, and you'll be like, I'm right as rain. Although I do have a hankering for some corn cobs. Blitz Neo, let's go ahead and toss you the keys to the world famous Carpenter Copter. We're leaving behind China. Why don't you fly us all the way out to Sacramento? And while we're headed out there, I got a little promo to read. I was approached by a company. They go, hey, will you help promote our new movie? And I go, I've already been helping promote your new movie. I will gladly do it for a free copy of the movie. Bring home Smile 2 on digital now. In this terrifying thriller, an unknown force is latched onto global pop star Sky Riley as reality and her nightmares collide. By the film critics are calling the scariest movie of the year by a mile. And get over 40 minutes of bone-chilling extras, including... I didn't know this. I probably should have read the ad read. Now I'm even more excited. And get over 40 minutes of bone-chilling extras, including deleted scenes and more. Available at participating retailers. Rated R from Paramount Pictures. Dude, Smile 2 actually might be the scariest movie of the year. Like, I really like Longlegs. In a Violent Nature wasn't really scary. I never saw, like, Immaculate. I never saw the first Omen. Not because I didn't want to, but just because they left theaters pretty quickly. I could watch them now. I didn't get to see Heretic. I wanted to see that this weekend, but it's out of theaters. But Smile 2 is probably the movie that stuck with me the most. Really, really enjoyed it. Blitz Neo, let's go ahead and fly us all the way out to Sacramento. Sacramento, California, my hometown, is where I think this story takes place. I was kind of looking into this story, and there's a couple clues and comments about the city of Sacramento. So that might be where this story is taking place. Kind of crazy. Small world, right? We're about to meet a young woman. We're going to call her Tori. That's not her real name. She has an ability that, honestly, I think a lot of us... Well, this is interesting. I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to think. You can post it in the YouTube comments or shoot me an email. Post it on social media. I haven't checked my Instagram in a long time, so I probably should. But you guys, would you like the ability to see into the future through your dreams? I mean, technically, I could just say see into the future. But when I say in your dreams, one, that makes everything a little nebulous. You'd always wonder if you were actually having a dream or if it was a future-telling dream. But let's take a look here at Tori. Tori has the ability that she can see into the future, but it always seems to be life and death things. It's not lottery tickets. It's not who's going to get cast in the next movie or anything like that. Will there be a Smile 3? Nothing important. More just like, will my friends live or die? Will they live long enough to see Smile 3 in theaters? Tori says that her dreams kind of all have the same setup. She goes, it's completely different from a normal dream. When I'm having one of my future vision dreams, everything is hyper realistic. It's unmistakably a dream from the future. She goes, everything is so realistic. It's like I'm awake, but I'm seeing something that has not happened yet. And these are always bad omens. So when the dream starts up and she can realize, oh my God, I'm having a vision of the future, she knows it's not going to be a comforting dream. She knows it's actually going to be full of violence and chaos and blood. When she wakes up after the dream is over, she has to throw up. It's such a jarring experience. It's such a violent experience and such a dark vision that she needs to puke. She'll have to crawl into the bathroom as fast as she can to vomit. The first time Tori had one of these dreams, it was about her buddy who we will call Clark. Clark is walking up to a car. Hey guys, what's up? Sees his friends in there. Hey, yeah, gonna go hang out? Yeah, let's do it, man. Clark climbs into the back passenger seat, and the car takes off from the curb. It's a 4-door blue sedan that he's sitting in. And they're just talking. Him and his buddies are just talking, hanging out, headed to a fun destination. When all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a car T-bones the 4-door blue sedan, impacting right where Clark was sitting. And since Clark wasn't wearing his seatbelt, he was ejected from the vehicle. He hits the concrete. He's rolling across the concrete. He's covered in blood. He's spitting up teeth. His skin has been ripped away from skipping across the concrete multiple times. He's laying there on the ground, drowning in his own blood. Massive organ damage. He dies, looking up at the night sky before the medics could get there. Tori wakes up. She needs to vomit. She needs to throw up. She crawls out of bed. She's headed towards the bathroom. And while she's feeling this physical sensation that she needs to throw up, her mind is racing. What type of dream? What was that? What was that? What was up with that dream? Oh my God, it was the most violent dream I've ever had. It felt like I was there. It felt like I saw it. And, it's late at night. Should I call Clark? She sits there and she's thinking, no, that's stupid. That's stupid. It was a dumb dream. It's just a dream. But in her gut, after throwing up, she can now listen to her gut. She goes, as dumb as this is, as stupid as this sounds, I need to call Clark. And she does. She calls up Clark and she's like, hey, Clark, listen, oh my God, I know this is going to sound insane, but are you going anywhere tonight? Are you hanging out with anybody? Yeah, so-and-so and so-and-so are rolling on through. They're going to pick me up. And some of my other friends were going to go hang out at the club. Yeah. Tori goes, Clark, listen, I know this sounds dumb, and I know you won't believe me, but I just had a dream of you dying in a horrific car accident. You got in this 4-door blue sedan-type car, and you weren't wearing your seatbelt, and you got T-boned, and I watched you fly out the window. It was horrific. Don't go out. That's nice. That's nice that you called, that you had a vision of death about me. None of my friends have a 4-door blue sedan. Like that alone. Like, I'm sorry you had a horrible nightmare. I promise I'll be safe. I won't be with anyone who's drinking or driving or doing anything crazy like that. But it's not. You don't have to worry about it. Like the key detail. It's not happening. So he kind of laughed her off, but he understands. Someone's concerned. Someone had a spooky dream. And he goes, I'll talk to you later. An hour later, Tori gets a phone call from Clark. He's hysterical. He's sobbing. Immediately, right? She had just had this dream. She really debated over whether or not to tell him. And now an hour later, it's late at night. He's calling up. Hysterical. He's freaking out. And Tori's like, oh my God, is everything okay? And Clark says, you won't believe this. I was standing there waiting for my buddies to come pick me up, and one of them had just bought a brand new blue Honda Civic. And they pulled up, and they said, hey, Clark, get in, we're going to the club. Get in, bro. And Clark looks, and the seat for him would be the back passenger seat. And he tells them, hey, you know what? I'm going to get a ride from someone else. What? Come on, man. We drove all the way out here to pick you up and show off my brand new blue 4-door sedan. Nah, dude. Nah, I'm gonna get so-and-so. I'm gonna get my boy Johnny to... Okay, yeah, fine. Well, that's weird. And Clark watched them drive off in the car, and Johnny rolls up and picks up Clark, and they all head off to the club. Well, what happens was, on the way to the club, the blue Honda Civic gets T-boned out of nowhere and completely crumples in the part of the car where Clark would have been sitting. The driver and the other passenger in that car, the guy who was in the front seat and the driver, to this day, she says they still suffer from their injuries. Like, they've gotten better, but they're still in pain. Like, it was that bad of an accident. They were both really messed up by it. Clark would have been killed had she not told him about the dream. If that was a one-off, right? You have that one dream and you save your buddy's life, you'd go, well, that was just weird. But I'm glad that it happened. The next time she had a dream, she had a vivid dream of her friend getting beaten to death. Multiple people beating down her best friend until she's dead. Tori woke up. She immediately recognized the dream from the last one. It was that realistic dream. She has this need to puke. She's seen someone close to her, a friend of hers, getting murdered. She ends up calling that friend, and it's a long story where the friend was involved in some sort of situation where people were threatening her, and the friend was trying to get a hold of the police so the police could come and investigate it. But in the meantime, she wanted to just stay at her apartment while the police were taking care of this and that. And Tori convinced her, no, listen, this has happened before. Please do not stay where you're at right now. Leave your apartment, go stay with somebody else. I'm afraid that they're going to kill you tonight. And she was able to convince her friend to leave the apartment. That's an interesting story because we don't have the follow-up like we have with the Clark story. We know for sure the car did get in the accident. So she was right on that. This one, we don't know if the people who were going to murder her did show up at the apartment and she wasn't there. Or if they decided to not show up at all, we don't know. But she did have that dream, and she believes, and it's quite possible that she saved her friend's life that night. The other one is a story where she was able, her at-the-time boyfriend, she had a dream that her boyfriend's uncle was going to be a semi-driver, was going to be driving a semi-truck, because I think he previously was doing that, but this was a particular situation. He was driving a semi-truck, and an accident was caused that resulted in a multi-casualty event. So a truck slams into a bunch of cars, trailer ignites, one of these types of situations where a lot of people are killed, including her boyfriend's uncle. And this was a situation because this is like a friend of a friend. She first has to convince her boyfriend to tell the uncle. And then she hopes that the uncle will be convinced to not work there. Like, what does that even mean, to not take a particular shift? But in this dream, she kept seeing a particular name. In this dream, she kept seeing the name Hendrickson. Hendrickson. She goes, it was the name of the company he was driving for. She goes, I even saw their logo. Like, in the dream, I saw their logo, I saw that name. It was constantly being, in a way, like, sent to her. That meant Hendrickson. She has this hyper-realistic dream. She wakes up, she vomits, and she's telling her boyfriend about this, and she goes, is your uncle, like, driving semis or something like that? I'm afraid he's going to get in this car accident. I'm afraid he's going to get in this horrible accident and die. And she has to convince her boyfriend to call his uncle and put his neck out on the line because it sounds crazy. But she's finally able to convince her boyfriend to call up the uncle, and when the boyfriend's like, hey, listen, my girlfriend, she's weird, she has this dream about people dying or whatever, I'm barely paying attention, but she had a dream about you dying in a semi-truck accident. And she wanted me to tell you the name of the company was Hendrickson. She said that that's important to this message as well. And the uncle's like, oh my, how'd you know that? Boyfriend's like, what are you talking about? And the uncle said, I just got offered a job to work at Hendrickson Trucking. Just got that job offer. And because of the dream, he ended up turning it down. Because of the dream, he ended up not taking the job offer. Because at this point, she's 2 for 2. There's one that is right on. She could tell the story. I had this dream about my friend dying in a car accident. He didn't get in the car. An hour later, the car was totaled. And I saved my friend's life. That's a one-on-one shot right there. The second one, you can say, listen, I had a dream. My friend was getting beaten to death. Unbeknownst to me, she had started static with the wrong people, and people were actually looking for her to try to kill her. But there's no proof that something happened after fact. So she's had 3 dreams now, and one is proven that the dream works. The other 2, we don't know. The event was averted. Now we're in the year 2013. I should have told you earlier when all this stuff was kind of taking place, but this is the only hard year she gave us. In 2013, her aunt died. We'll call her Aunt Mary. Tori's Aunt Mary was only 39 years old. And in a lot of ways, Tori was closer to her aunt than she was to her own mother. Her and Aunt Mary, we'll just say Mary from now on. Tori and Mary, they just clicked. One night, Mary was involved in a horrific car accident. And Tori didn't know how bad of a car accident it was. So when Aunt Mary died, Tori was kind of resentful. Mary was such a strong woman. Tori said, I felt like my aunt should have fought harder. I feel like my aunt should have fought harder to stay alive. She was very angry at the fact that Mary had given up. She didn't fight hard enough to stay alive. She died in this car accident. And she shouldn't have. It's irrational to think that way, but in grief, we do and think irrational things. The night after her aunt died, Tori has a dream. A hyper-realistic dream that she knows is more than just neurons firing while you're unconscious. She's been in this situation 3 times before. In this dream, Aunt Mary and a tall, thin man walk into the living room of Tori's house. The tall, thin man had no face, and he took a seat in one of the chairs. Tori looks over at the man with no face, and, he has no face. She doesn't recognize him physically, but she knows, and she doesn't know how she knows, but she knows that's her uncle. We'll call him Jack. Mary's brother, it's Uncle Jack. Tori and Aunt Mary are standing there, and of course, Tori asks the question, why didn't you fight harder? Why didn't you fight harder to stay alive? Aunt Mary says, Tori, had I survived that car accident, at the bare minimum, I would never be able to walk again. That actually kind of makes Tori a little upset. She goes, I would have taken care of you. I 100% would have taken care of you and helped you out with whatever you needed. And Aunt Mary just kind of stands there and she shakes her head. Then she points, Aunt Mary points to her own forehead, her right hand, her hips, and down both of her legs. She kind of points at all of these areas of her body. And she tells Tori, she goes, these are all the places where I was horribly injured and mangled. It's not just a matter of you pushing me around in a wheelchair and cleaning my bedpan. Life would have been completely different for me, of course, but if everyone else around me. So that's why I didn't fight harder. Tori goes, I would have taken care of you. It doesn't matter. I would have taken care of you. And Aunt Mary says, you'll understand someday. That's a direct quote from Tori's story. She said, my aunt told me, you'll understand someday. Then Aunt Mary turned and looked towards the faceless man, Uncle Jack, and kind of made a motion with her hand. The faceless man gets up out of the chair. Aunt Mary and Uncle Jack both walk out of the living room. Tori wakes up and she vomits. It's the same setup for each one. And she is so broken at this point. Tori is so just completely shattered. This was such a strong role model. This was such a strong friend in her life, and now she's gone. And you have all of that. Then you have this conversation with her. This conversation that Tori doesn't believe is just a dream. Like, this is like those other times I saw into the future. This had nothing to do with the future, Tori thinks. She just, I mean, that would be hard, right? If someone in this type of situation, I mean, who wouldn't, if one of my loved ones needed help getting pushed around, and even if I had to empty a bedpan and stuff like that, I mean, it's not optimal. I'm not going to pretend that I'm going to have fun emptying the bedpan, but I do it. You do it. But to have the person go, no, I just decided to die instead. You'll understand someday. Which people do make the choice, right? This was the one dream that Tori didn't tell anyone about. Every other dream, as soon as she could get the information conveyed to somebody, she didn't tell anyone about this dream. What is there to tell, really? I had a dream about Aunt Mary, and she told me, I'll understand someday. Eventually, Tori did discover that when Aunt Mary was involved in that car accident, she was beyond not being able to walk again. Tori says that she would have been unrecognizable. And whether that means physical or mental or both, Tori understood that it wasn't just a matter of, I'll never walk again, therefore I'll die. She would have been a completely different person. Tori also noted, she says that when they looked at the medical report after her aunt had passed away and they did the autopsy and all that stuff, you can get that. That's all public information. She goes, the parts of Aunt Mary's body where she pointed was actually the places where she was injured, and Tori added, it was the only places where she was injured. So it was her head and her legs suffered major damage, her hand, her hip. Tori didn't tell anyone about this dream. Was it prophetic? I mean, if anything, she's having a conversation with somebody who already passed. If anything, she should have had a dream before Aunt Mary got in the car accident in the first place. Maybe she could have saved her. Was this a dream of the future, or was this just a dream of a loved one saying goodbye? Tori didn't tell anyone about the dream. Several months after the funeral of Aunt Mary, Uncle Jack committed suicide. Tori has not had a dream of the future since. It's a super fascinating story. I don't have a lot of time to do my normal wrap-up, because that one went on long. It was posted online by someone going by the name All the Snacks. Very interesting. 2013 is the last time she's had this ability to do this. And, the question posed in the beginning, would you want this ability? It could bring a lot of joy. You could save lives. It could bring a lot of sorrow. And you would ask yourself, why didn't I have a dream? Why did I have a dream about my boyfriend's uncle, but I couldn't have a dream to save my own aunt? You'd be having those conversations. If you don't have that ability, we don't have that ability. We don't worry about it. And then you wonder if the thing she did different, right, was not tell anyone about this dream. She could have saved Uncle Jack's life. Possibly. Having no face, we've talked about this before on the podcast, it's fairly common and quite frightening that when people kill themselves with firearms, which is the preferred method, the way men kill themselves, a lot of times they'll blow off their face. A lot of times they'll survive, too. They'll survive long enough to go to the hospital, and they'll stabilize you. There are more than a few photos online of suicide victims who have had their face disintegrated through a shotgun blast and are now undergoing plastic surgery. And a lot of times they lose their vision as well with that shot. I don't know where that came from. Was that a movie thing of putting the gun under your chin and pulling the trigger to kill yourself? It's very, very, and I'm not promoting suicide at all. I'm not trying to give you a better method, but very bad way to do it. It's generally not lethal. So I wonder if that's how he killed himself, was by shooting himself in the head or in the face, or if it had some other sort of meaning. It's interesting that she goes, that's my uncle. Like, I totally know that's my uncle. I just feel like that's my uncle. But she didn't tell anybody. First off, I'm not blaming Tori for her uncle's death at all. I'm actually wondering if, because she didn't say anything about that dream, that's why she hasn't had any dreams since. Because she was given a vision of the future and she prevented it. And she did it again, and then she did it again. And then the fourth time, when she was presented with the option, that sounds bad. I'm not blaming her for it. I'm not saying she could have prevented it. I think you guys can see where I'm at, maybe. But she chose not to disclose it, and she's in her grief. She's in her grief. It wasn't like she saw a vision of her uncle killing himself. She has all these emotions already wrapped up. She's dealing with all of this loss. That dream was so much more abstract than the other ones that were pretty concrete. And because she didn't say anything, that the gift was revoked. Because she didn't use the vision to change the future, she lost the ability to see the future. And I have no proof of that at all. I find it interesting that she seemed to have these dreams and then they just ended after the one time she didn't tell anybody about it. So by not telling people about the dream, by not possibly changing the future, the ability faded away. It was not used. And then it was revoked. It's a terrifying story because I think it does make you think. If you said in the beginning, oh yeah, I'd like to see the future, you would have these types of visions. And sometimes you could prevent it, and sometimes you couldn't. But you would never know the difference between the two until it was too late. And is having that gift worth having all of the responsibility of knowing the future and not stopping it? Maybe not even being able to stop it, but not stopping it nonetheless. At what point does a gift become a curse? Like, why didn't she have the dream about her aunt dying in that car accident? That would be my I would wonder that for the rest of my life if I had that ability and that happened to me. Why'd you let me see this other stuff, but you couldn't let me save the one person in the world who's the closest to me? Tori has no idea why she started having these dreams of the future. She has no clue as to why they stopped. Most importantly, though, she just can't figure out why she didn't get a dream warning of her aunt's death. She had one about her boyfriend's uncle, but she couldn't protect the person she loved the most. But the world of the paranormal is not a world of answers. It's a world of questions. Questions that upon closer examination just lead to more questions. The pain that Tori feels to this day over losing her aunt, and the agony it must cause her because her psychic ability didn't allow her to save Aunt Mary. She doesn't know why things worked out this way. But hopefully, she'll find peace. Hopefully, someday, she'll understand. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day. I'm glad you listened to it today.